and more cars. More on our roads than last year, and there'll be more next year. And the year after that, more and more cars will be built and more cars will be bought. And every one of them will be entitled to room on our roads and highways. The thing is, will there always be room for one more car? Well, there isn't even enough room now. Today, many of our highways are already obsolete. What would happen on them during a national emergency? The entire population under panic conditions trying to escape. Death on the highways is one of America's greatest problems. Major factors in this mounting loss of life are the roads and highways themselves. They are not engineered for safety or for the number of cars now using them. President Eisenhower's militant call for a grand plan to provide a modern controlled access highway system for safe, efficient transcontinental travel led to the passage of the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. He dramatically underscored the fact that our interstate road network is inadequate locally and obsolete nationally.
President Eisenhower was a hands-off president, but his fingerprints are all over the American landscape. In 1956, he signed the Interstate Highway Act, the most important infrastructure bill since the Pacific Rail Act of 1862. The Pacific Rail Act tied the country together with the Transcontinental Railroad. The Interstate Highway Act tied the country together with a national highway system. Cars had been growing in popularity since Henry Ford started mass-producing them in the 1920s. Local governments had been building roads for them, but there was no coordination between one state and another, making cross-country travel difficult. The interstate highway system tied all of these roads together into a system of interstates, arteries that can carry cars from coast to coast. It was a matter of commerce. Companies were transporting goods in standardized containers shipped on trucks. An interstate highway system would allow those trucks to travel anywhere. It was also a matter of national security. In the case of war, the country needed to be able to transport troops or missiles quickly. The highways were standardized, with specific guidelines for lane and shoulder width. They would be straight and flat so that cars could maintain fast speeds. They would be numbered so people could keep track of where they were. North-south highways were odd-numbered going from east to west, starting from I-5 on the west coast to I-95 on the east coast. East-west highways were even-numbered. I-10 in the south connects Santa Monica, California and Jacksonville, Florida. I-90 in the north connects Seattle, Washington and Boston, Massachusetts. The effects were extraordinary. Car sales jumped from 6.5 million in 1950 to almost 8 million by 1955. With the government investing in highways, it meant the government wasn't investing in rail. Instead of buying rail tickets, people would need cars to get around. The age of rail gave way to the age of the automobile. Nothing illustrates this change more than the demolition of Old Penn Station. Built in 1910, Penn Station was a temple of the national rail system. It was the first place people arriving to New York City saw, 2 square blocks of Beaux-Arts architecture. It represented the wealth and prestige of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, which was not only the largest rail company at one point, but one of the largest corporations on Earth. Its destruction signaled the end of the railroad era. The automobile era was here. Gasoline was needed to keep automobiles moving. The more people relied on cars, the more vital oil became to the economy. We couldn't produce enough oil to keep up with this type of demand. FDR realized this even as early as 1945. In that year, he met with Abdul Aziz ibn Saud, the king of a country we call Saudi Arabia today. FDR guaranteed Saudi Arabia's safety in return for cheap oil. The Saudi-American relationship is still going, especially with Trump in office, who's never seen a Saudi rial he didn't like. A different oil drama unfolded in Iran. In 1951, Iran had a democratically elected government headed by Mohammad Mossadegh. He promised to take control of Iran's oil resources from the British Anglo-Persian Oil Company. The US was afraid he was going to charge them up the wazoo for oil the company normally sold to them cheaply. So a brand new American organization, the Central Intelligence Agency, stirred up a rebellion against Mossadegh. He was forced out of power in favor of an American puppet, Shah Reza Pahlavi. The Shah ruled Iran for 25 years as a ruthless dictator backed by the United States, for which he gave us cheap oil. In the late 1970s, he was overthrown in favor of a Shia Islamic government that continues to be an implacable American foe to this day. Most Americans didn't register these foreign implications of cars and oil, but they definitely registered the domestic ones. Cars could be liberating. They freed people from relying on public transportation, like city buses or national rail. People didn't have to live close to their jobs. They didn't even have to live in cities anymore. They could live in one town and work in the next town. They could live in suburbs. Suburbs were towns on the outskirts of big cities. They offered a different type of life than the cities, one that many Americans considered better. Cities had crowded tenement apartments, suburbs had spacious homes. Spacious homes meant, well, space. You can cram 30 people into one tenement building in the city. In the suburbs, those 30 people might need 9 or 10 different homes on 1 or 2 long blocks. All of this extra space wasn't conducive to walking. Seeing your friend, going to the store, that required a car. Movie theaters developed drive-thru models where you could pull into a parking lot and watch movies without leaving your car. In 1955, Ray Kroc opened up his first drive-thru restaurant in Des Plaines, Illinois, where people could order from a small menu of burgers, fries, and shakes, all while sitting behind the wheel. By 1960, he had opened over 200 restaurants scattered along highways across the country. In 1961, he purchased the so-called Speedy Service System of food service from the McDonald brothers in California and named his restaurant chain McDonald's. Businesses expanded their operations in suburbs too. They bought parks in the suburbs where they could store the containers used to ship products. Trucks would pick them up and deliver them over the highway system. Sunbelt suburbs became a popular business destination, since Sunbelt states had fewer union protections for their workers. Companies could pay workers less and work them more in the suburbs of the South and Southwest than in traditional union strongholds of the Northeast and Midwest. This gave rise to another belt. As businesses moved out of the Northeast and Midwest, they left behind giant factory buildings that would sit around unused. As time went on, the buildings and machinery would rust over, which is why these areas of the country were called the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt lost power and wealth as the Sun Belt grew. This economic shift would shape America well into the 21st century.